Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, because we are going to learn 3ds Max in less than 1 hour. Let's do it! When you open the software, the first thing you say is WTH. What am I looking at? Don't worry, I'm here to explain. First, you see a teapot here. Anything that exists in your scene is called object, such as this teapot. And this teapot is in a very massive and infinite area, which is called scene. It doesn't matter what you want to make. If you want to make a character, a building, or anything, you need to make it here in the scene. The 4 windows you see here are 4 cameras that are looking at your scene and object from 4 different views, such as perspective, front, top, and of course left. If for any reason you decided to change your view, for example you wanted to change it from left to right, simply click on left and choose your favorite view. In this case I choose right. You might have wondered why my teapot is different in my right, top and front view. Because it shows my scene in wireframe. By simply clicking on wireframe and choosing default shading, you can have the same style as perspective view. But there is another big problem. We have 4 small windows. What if we want to have one big window that covers the entire scene? It's very simple. Choose your scene and click on this button. And if you wanted to make it smaller, click on it again. And if you'd like, you can be like a professional and use the short key, which are Alt W. If you push Alt W, you can make it bigger, and if you do it again, you can make it smaller. And if you hover your mouse over any of these views, you can make that specific view bigger and smaller. See? Easy. Now you might have a bigger question, which is how could I make such a perfect and fantastic and fabulous teapot? It's very simple. First we select the object and we delete it by clicking on delete. Then we click on this plus button which is called create panel and we select this which is called geometry. When we do this, we have so many 3D options that we can use to create. In this case, we're gonna make a teapot. So we click on teapot. And in order to make our first teapot, we simply click anywhere in the scene, hold it, drag it, and release it. Just created our first perfect and fantastic teapot. But our teapot is not perfect. As you see, it's not located exactly in the middle of our scene. How can we put it exactly in the middle of the scene? First, select your object and then click on W. You see this thing. This thing is called pivot, a transform pivot. We use transform pivot to move our object in our scene. It has 3 different axes, which are used to move our object in that certain direction. Besides, each 2 axes have a surface in common. You can use it to move your object in that 2 dimensions, such as y and z or z and x. But there is a bigger problem. What if we want to put it exactly in the center of our scene? Exactly in a place which x is 0, y is 0, z is 0. Well, come here and put 0, 0, 0 for x, y and z. And congratulations, you just put your object exactly in the center of your infinite scene. Bravo! By the way, if you click on E, you would activate rotation pivot, which you can use it to rotate your game object like this. And like previous one, you can put numbers here so your game object will look at exact direction. Let's put -45 for y and z, and now my game object look like this. And in order to change the size, you can click on R to activate a scale pivot. And now by playing with these arrows, you can make your game object bigger and smaller in certain directions and certain dimensions. Bigger or smaller, bigger or smaller, bigger or smaller, bigger or smaller. Yeah! See, this is 3ds Max and this is why this is so popular. Now you know everything you need to know to make a simple scene in 3ds Max. But first we need to reset everything. You might wonder how can we reset everything? Simple, just click on File and Reset. Now it asks, do we need to save the project? We say don't save it. And then it asks, do you want to reset everything? We say yes. Now everything is reset back to the factory default. Our scene is going to have a ground. That's why we are going to make a plane. How are we going to make a plane? By clicking on create geometry and selecting plane. And click anywhere in your scene, hold it, drag it, and release it. Now we have a plane. But if you use Alt and W to make your window bigger and look at your plane, you realize your plane has an issue. The width and the length are not equal, which is not good. Select your plane and then select modify. Here you can see every necessary information regarding your object. The name, the color, and width and length. Let's give 250 for length and 250 for width. Now we have a big square. And let's change the color. Let's make it gray. Because why not? And I think we should change the name too. Let's change the name to ground. And obviously it's not in the center. We're going to put it exactly in the center by putting 0, 0, 0 for X, Y, Z. Now it's time to make a cube. So simply go to create, geometry, and select box. First click anywhere in the scene. Hold the mouse button, drag it, and release it. Now we have a square. To give it thickness, drag it up or down, click, and bingo, we have a box. But obviously the bigger problem is our box doesn't have the same width, length, and the same height. To solve it, select the object, go to modifier, and give 45 for each length, width, and height. And now we have a perfect cube. By the way, it has a terrible color. Let's change it. Let's change it to black. No. Let's change it to blue sky. Beautiful, isn't it? Position in the center. So let's put it in the center. 0, 0, 0. Now, let's put a teapot on top of our box. We go to create, geometry, teapot. We put our mouse on top of the box or cube and create our teapot. But wait a minute, there is a problem. If you hold Alt and middle mouse button, you can change your perspective. And what the hell is this? Why the teapot is here? It's supposed to be created on top of the box. Maybe it was a bug, maybe it was a glitch. Let's do it again. We do it again and WTH. Well, when you want to create an object on another object, you must activate this option, auto grid. When you enable it, you can create any object you want on top of another object, like this. Problem solved. By the way, let's just give 0 as a value to X and Y to put it exactly in the middle of the scene. And what else should we do? I think it's a little bit too big. Let's make it smaller. We're going to modifier and change the radius to 10. And the color, make it red. Because I love red. And the name, we change it to teapot. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure if you've noticed or not, but every time we create a new object, we realize something happens here. This list here is called Scene Explorer. Simply, it's a list of every single object that exists in your scene. For example, every time we create anything, for example, in this case, we want to create a cylinder. When we create it, you see the name that shows up here. It's not just a list of names. For example, if we click on this eye, you can make that specific object invisible. For example, the teapot, we can see it, and if we click on the eye, we can't see it. Now it's gone. It's not deleted. It's just invisible. And if we click on the eye again, we can see it. And now we can't see it. Now we can see it, and that's it. There's also a snowflake for each object. When you enable the snowflake, you make that object frozen. What does it mean? It means you cannot select it anymore. Look, I've just frozen the teapot and I can't select it. And if I unfrozen it, I can select it. I'm a genius, I know. Now, we just created a masterpiece. I want to turn it into an image. because when we are going to show our masterpiece to anyone, we're not gonna open 3ds Max to show it to others. If we want to share our masterpiece, we need to share it as an image. In order to take an image of this scene, first we need to create a camera. How to create a camera? We click on create and select this camera. There are 3 different cameras, but for now we just select the free one to make a simple and basic camera. And here we have our simple and basic camera. We can easily move it, rotate it, give it an angle like any other object. If you push C button, you can see your scene through your camera view like this. And by holding middle mouse button, you can move your camera. However, you cannot rotate it, just move it. And if you click on P, you can go back to perspective view. Now we click Alt and W to make our window smaller. Choose any of these windows and change the view to camera view by simply clicking on the view's name and camera. In this case we have only one camera, which is called camera 001. We also can change the shading from wireframe to default shading. But there is a big problem. There are 4 windows when we simply need only 2. How to make only 2 windows? Where we click here and select our favorite template. We say we just need 2 windows, so we select this one. And now we change each view to any view we want. For example, this one to camera view. And now we can see our scene through camera view. We also can change the style from wireframe to default shading. And also by clicking on P, you can change this view to perspective, and if you hold Alt and middle mouse button, you can move your view. Now we have a camera. Now let me show you something cool. If we select our camera and move it, the camera view also change. Yeah, but there is a big problem. We want our camera to exactly look at our teapot, and rotating it and moving it is kind of pain in the neck. We want to make it easier. How are we going to do it? By using target camera. What is a target camera? It's a camera with a target. When we create a target camera, in the first click, it creates a camera. But there's also a second click to create the target of that camera. That's a camera target. Your camera always look at the target. Now look, just a moment. I deleted the previous camera. That's why the view changed back to perspective. We click on C to bring it back to camera view. And now look, I'm moving the camera. It doesn't matter where I put it. It always look at the target. Now if I select the target and put it exactly where the teapot is, teapot position is 0045. We give this coordinate to the target. And it's a bit hard for you to select it. You can select it in Scene Explorer. We select it and give it 0045, which is the exact position of teapot in our scene. And now if you move your camera, you can see it doesn't matter where it is. It always look at our teapot. Now let's give a perfect shot to our camera. I think this one is good. Now we have a perfect shot of a perfect scene. Wow! The first thing that comes to your mind is, why the hell this scene is so ugly? How can we make it more beautiful, more realistic? The answer is rendering. Rendering is a process to make your scene, well, more beautiful and more realistic. How are we going to do it? By clicking on rendering and selecting render setup. Of course, you can use F10 as the shortcut. The moment you see render setup window, you will say WTH is this. Look, it's very simple. Here you can choose the software you want to use for rendering. There are so many options such as ART, Arnold, and V-Ray. In this case, I'm going to choose Arnold because it's easier, it's more beautiful, and I love it. Here you must choose the view you want to use to render. Obviously, you have top view, front view, perspective view. We want to use the camera view, so we select camera 001. Here you can say, hey, you wanna render an image or a movie? We say no, we wanna just one single image. That's why we select single. And for output size, well, you can choose the size of your output. In this case, I strongly recommend you to choose custom and choose the lowest possible size, because rendering put a lot of pressure on your system, and if you want to take a big and massive size, it's gonna take a lot of time. And then click on render. Yes, this is our output, but as you can see, it's a little bit too small. Let's make it bigger. Let's make it 800, 600, and select render. And if for any reason you decided to stop the rendering process, simply click on escape and the process will stop in the midway. And if you wanted to continue, select this one. Needless to say, when you have enabled that option, every change you make in the scene, it immediately will render it out. Obviously, it will put a ton of pressure on your system, so I personally recommend you to disable it like this. Just keep it in mind, no pain, no gain. If you want better and more realistic and higher quality renders, you need to put more pressure on your system. No pain, no gain. Now we have a photo. The image is a kind of better than what we have in our scene, but still it is not realistic. How can we make it realistic? By using shadows and light. How to make lights? I'm sure you already know how to create light by going to create and selecting light. That's it. Now, there's something very important you need to know. When it comes to lighting, each render engine use its own type of light. For example, V-Ray only use V-Ray light and Arnold only use Arnold light. In this case, we are using Arnold. That's why here we choose Arnold to create Arnold light. And boom, we have a Arnold light, which can be used for Arnold rendering. Like any other object in the 3ds Max, by going to modifier, you can see all the necessary information about that object. For example, here we can change the type of our light. We choose point light, which works like a lamp. We put it over the teapot. Let's render it to see the big and huge difference it makes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to see the magic of light and shadows and WOW. Just by adding one simple lamp, we made such a beautiful and fantastic scene. And if we change our view to perspective and render again, voila! All I can say is fantastic and fabulous. Just look at the shadow. Look at the reflection. Now let me show you something even better. If we change the position of our light source and render again, we see everything change in our scene. Look at the new position and new shape of our shadow. Look, this is the magic of rendering. Now you might wonder, okay, we have the photo. How are we going to save it? Simple. Go to File, Save Image, choose an address anywhere in your system, and at the end, give it a name. In this case, I use teapot. And you can use .png, .jpg, .jpeg, and save it. And when you go to that address, you will find your photo, which you can use it to send it and share it with others. Now let's talk about animation. Animation in 3ds Max works exactly like stop motion animation. Stop motion animations are such as Wallace and Gromit, Pat and Matt, where we have a doll, we take a photo of it, we change its pose, we take a photo again, and we do it again and again and again until we have so many photos. And at the end, we put all those photos together to have a movie. At the bottom of your screen, you have this bar, which has 100 frames, and each 24 frame is 1 second. Here we have 3 buttons. The most important one is set key, which is going to enable our animation function. And the plus button you see next to it is the camera that's gonna capture every moment of our animation. Here we have 100 frame, and each frame is one single photo. Okay, what do you think about making a very simple and stupid animation? In order to start making our animation, I must say 100 frame is too much. Let's make it 10 by clicking on this clock. Come here and change the length from 100 to 10. You might say, but I'm changing in time. Well, that's a simple stupid mistake. Change this one from 100 to 10. And now we have 10 frames, which means 10 photos. Now to make an animation, first select your object. Select set key to activate or enable animation mode. And then click on the plus button to save all the information regarding the selected object in this key. Now, move this thing, I have no idea what it's called, from frame 0 to frame 5. Now, change the position, rotation, whatever you like of that object. And click on plus again. And the new information are recorded in a new key in frame 5. And if we go to frame 10 and make another change and save it, we have another key. Now we have 3 keys with 3 different information of your object. And if we click on this, we can see a preview of our simple and stupid animation. And if for any reason you say, no, I'm going to change it, go to that frame, that specific frame you want to make the change, and when the animation mode is enabled, change the position. And don't forget to click on the set key to overwrite it on the previous data. You go to 10 and change it to -50 and save it again. Play the animation, we see our new animation. Now we click on set key to disable the animation mode, and now we have our animation. Now, how are we going to export our animation? Simply go to rendering and render setup. You see this window. This time we're not gonna render out a single photo. We're going to render a video. We have two options: active time segment from 0 to 10, which is the one we're going to choose. The second option is range option, which is obvious. You can decide from what frame to what frame you want to render out. And output size, you can choose the size of your output. Common sense, I know. But when we click on render, we see this option. It says, hey, you need to change the output. To solve it, go to render output file and choose a new destination for your photos. Here we create a folder and call it video, and inside that folder we create our image sequence. First, choose a name such as teapot, and at the end put the type of that file such as .png, and choose a size for it. It's gonna take a lot of time, so we're going to choose the smallest size, and we click on render and we wait. And obviously 3ds Max is going to render every single of those 10 frames. And if we go to that place, the place we decided to save our output, we see our photos with different names such as 001, 002, 003, 004. When the rendering is finished, you need to put all these photos in another software, combine them and turn them into one single video. But just to have a preview of your animation, select one of the photos, switch between other photos as fast as possible to see the animation. And this is our first animation in 3ds Max. I know it's not much, but it's honest work. Now before we go even further, I need to explain you how 3D softwares work. This is a point. By connecting 2 points, we can have a line. And by using 3 lines, we can have a triangle. And by using 2 triangles, we can have a square. And by using 6 squares, we can have a cube. And I think you know where it's going. It really doesn't matter how complex a 3D model is. It's nothing but bunch of lines and points that were connected to each other. Okay, as I said, all 3D objects are made of points and lines. And now we are going to create something. It really doesn't matter. But we are going to start from scratch, from a point. What are we going to do? First, by using Alt and W, make your perspective view bigger. Come here, click on this and choose line. As I said, line is created by connecting two points. Let's make a line. Let's put it exactly at the corner of this grid and put the second one here on the other corner. But we have a big problem. As you can see, our points are not positioned exactly in the corner of the grid. How are we going to deal with this problem? First, let's create another line. But before we start creating it, we need to use this tool, this 3 next to a magnet. It's called Snap, and it works exactly like a magnet. The 3 is used for 3D dimension, but in this case, we want to use it in 2D dimension. We simply hold left mouse button, choose the one with 2 to work in 2D dimension. Snap helps you to be more accurate. For example, right now I can click anywhere in the scene. 3ds Max creates the point in the exact precise areas like this. And let me tell you something, if you hold shift, you can keep your line straight like this. And I'm pretty sure that you have noticed, I don't click exactly at the corner of the grid. But since the snap is enabled, 3ds Max put it in the corner. And when I put the last point on the first point, it asks, do I want to close the spline? Select yes if you want to turn it into a 3D object. And to enable or disable the snap tool, you can click on S. Now we want to turn this 2D object into a 3D object. How are we going to do it? It's simple. Select that object, hold right click, come here, convert to, and choose convert to editable poly. And our lines just turned into a surface. See? And if for any reason the grid lines were like a thorn in your side, you can make them invisible by using G, like this. Now you might say, wait a minute, that's not a 3D object. That's a surface, it's 2D. How are we going to make it 3D? Remember I told you everything is made of points and line? Well, this is where you need it. See this option? It's called vertex. What is a vertex? Vertex is a point. This object is made out of 4 vertices. And if you use F3, you can turn your scene into wireframe to see the lines and vertices better. And as you can see, when we select a vertex and move it, the whole shape changes. The second one is edge. What is edge? Edge is lines. Lines that were made by connecting two vertices. Here we have 5 options. And by using 1 to 5, you can select the respective option. I'm gonna skip the third one. Let's talk about the fourth one. This is called polygon, and polygon is a surface. This object is made of only one surface. Now let's go back to the main issue. As we said, this is a 2D surface. We want it 3D. We need it to have a thickness. What should we do? When it's in polygon option, come here. You see a bunch of buttons. This is your toolbox. Select the only surface we have. We're going to use a tool named extrude to give it thickness. And now it's thick. We have a 3D thick box. But if for any reason we wanted to give it an exact or precise number, click on the button next to it. And here you can give exact number, like 10. Now if you go to wireframe mode, you see our object is made out of 12 edges. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, 12 edges and 8 vertices. This is a 3D object. We just created our first 3D object in 3ds Max. Needless to say, our object is made out of 5 or 6 surfaces. Now if we select the top surface and we use this tool named Inset, we can create another surface inside our previous surface. And like the extrude, by clicking the next button, you can give it an exact number. We can repeat this process to create a simple but perfect set of stairs. See, 3ds Max is not a difficult software at all, is it? Now let's talk about the fifth one, called Element. What is Element? Element, which also can be selected by clicking on 5, is the whole object. That's it. What's the difference with surface? Well, this is surface. This is surface. And now let's talk about the middle one. It's called border. What is border? Border is a hole. If we select this surface and we delete it, we have a hole here. And now if we use 3 to enable border option and click on any of the edges, the whole edges that shape our hole are selected like this. You might say, then what's the difference with edge? This is an edge. This is an edge. And now this is a hole. Get it? I'm sure you can understand it since you're watching this video instead of spending big amount of money to buy courses that teach you 3ds Max in 10 or 20 hours. Anyway, whenever you choose a different option between vertices, edges, polygon, your toolbox also change. And each one has certain options. For example, border option has a button named cap. When you click on it, it fills your hole like this. Also, when you use edge, you see options such as chamfer and connect, which are not available for other options. Now, what do they do? What does chamfer do? I won't tell you, I will show you. Let's select all the edges around our shape. How are we going to do? Well, it's simple. Select one of the edges and double click on it, and all surrounding edges will be selected. If you hold Ctrl and repeat it, you can select even more edges. Now to see the magic when these edges are selected, use chamfer. Nothing happens, but if you click and drag, see, this happens. Chamfer is one of those tools that I recommend you to use the button next to it. You see bunch of huge complex options like this. Don't worry about it, it's very simple. This one, you can decide the distance between two new lines that are created. By changing this option, you can add more edges between the two edges, which is good to make your shape smoother. And you can change which direction you want your corner to be created. You can make it this way or that way. And that's it. Chamfer is one of the most useful tools in 3ds Max. Now click on Nike button to confirm our change. And now we have this beautiful option. I have a lovely idea. I'm gonna turn this into a column. This part is the lower part. I wanna create another one for upper part. But first let's change the name. Let's change the name to lower. Now, when the transform pivot is enabled, hold shift and drag your option. And you see this window. You might wonder what's the difference between copy, instance, and a reference. It's a little bit complex, but for now just choose copy. Here you can choose a name. Let's change it to copy upper. And now in this part you can change how many new copy you want to see. Let's give it 5 and we have 5 new copy. Well, 5 is too much. 1 is enough. We delete the rest, choose the upper one and change its rotation. Let's give it 180, give it 250 height. Now we have two different objects, lower and upper. And that's the problem. I want them to be the same object. How am I supposed to solve this problem? Select one of them. Come down and you will see a button named Attach. And when you select another object, these two will become attached. In other words, they become one object. And if your scene was too busy, too crowded, and you couldn't find that object, come here next to attach, you will see this button. If you click on it, you will see Scene Explorer. Here you can find the object you wanted. Now, I want to connect this surface to that surface. How am I supposed to achieve this goal? The answer is easy. All I need to do is click on bridge, like this. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yes, I know I'm using this sentence a lot. I'm sure I'm gonna use it even more. So when you watch the whole video, please comment and tell me how many times I use easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now let me show you something cool and fantastic. If you select all these edges, then click on connect or the button next to it, you can connect all the selected edges with a new edge. The first option helps you to increase the number of new edges. You can make it 1, 2, 3, and 4, and etc. The middle one, you can increase or decrease the distance between created edges. And the bottom one, well, you can change the position of the new edges. And let's say we unintentionally created a new edge. We didn't want it. We didn't want it at all. It was an accident. And we need to get rid of it. How are we going to do it? By selecting it and using Ctrl and backspace. And it's gone for good. Now let's use extrude again. If we select all these faces and we click on extrude, we see something like this is happening. This is not what we want. To solve it, we need to change this option. There are three options: group, local normal, and by polygon. The first one, change all selected surfaces as one same group, which is why this is happening. But the middle one, everything goes its own way relative to other selected surfaces. The third one is the same, but this time each surface is totally independent to other surface. In this case, we need the middle one, and we use the middle one. Let's bring it -10. And now we have this beautiful and fantastic color. Let's make it even more beautiful and more fantastic. We select all the edges and use chamfer again. Let's do this. Let's give it a round down number, 25. And 1 is not enough. 2, 3. Yeah, 3 is good. And actually, this is not what I was planning, but man, this is even better. That's why we are going to keep it this way. Use the Nike button to confirm your change, and now look at this. Just look at this. And I think we have a problem. The upper part is a little bit too low. We're not going to delete and remake the entire object again. We simply go to vertex mode and select all vertices and hoist them up like this. And now we have a fantastic, actually not fantastic, let's get rid of this big massive hole. Go to border mode, look, border mode, select the hole and click on cap. Problem solved. Now let's get rid of it. Let's take another step. Let's open a new project, reset it to its default mode and create a rectangle. This time we're not going to use a line, we're going to use a rectangle. We enable snap mode and create a accurate rectangle. Last time we used extrude to make our 2D game object into a 3D. We first convert our game object into editable poly and then use extrude in there. But this time we're not gonna do that. We use this panel named modifier. Here you can see a modifier list. This is like a massive and immersive and amazing toolbox. There are so many different tools such as extrude that you can use to create complex, beautiful, and fantastic and fabulous things. Now we have extrude. Let's give it 25 amount. Beautiful, isn't it? And if for any reason you didn't like the modifier you just used, select it and click on the garbage can to put it in the garbage can. Let's make another cube. Let's extrude it to 120. Change the color to gray. Last time, in order to change our object, we use convert to and editable poly. But this time we're not going to do that. We use modifier again. We go to modifier list and search for edit poly. Where is it? Edit poly. There it is. And we have all the available options we used to have here again. Now, if we select surface and delete one of the surfaces, you see inside our object is black. You might say it's not a big deal. If you export this object to a game engine, like a bug in a game, you can see through that object. Some people say, well, select your surfaces and use flip to flip the side of surface. But I say no, don't do that. Instead, use another modifier named shell. It gives thickness to your object, like this. And here you can change the inner amount and outer amount. Let's change it to 15. Yeah, why not? Actually, I think let's go with outer amount. Let's make it 0 and change the outer amount to 20. No, that's a terrible idea. Let's go back to inner amount. 10. Wow, BEA, beautiful, isn't it? Now let me show you another tool. Let's make a vase. I'm not sure why, but all 3ds Max tutorial you find always make a vase. This time we want to use a line to create our 3D shape. Go to front mode, or it doesn't matter, just go to a 2D perspective and create a simple and basic shape like this. You might say, what the hell is going on? I will show you, just wait. Be patient, my brothers. We have this line and we want to turn it into a 3D object. And if we go to modifier and select lace, this happens. You might say, wait a minute, what the hell is this? Just follow me and let me explain. The way this tool works is it wraps around our line in a 360-degree around transform pivot. Our transform pivot is here and we need it to be located here. So the modifier works perfectly. But there is a problem. When we try to move our transform pivot, the whole object moves. How are we going to solve it? Very simple. Select the object and come to this panel named Hierarchy and select the first option, Affect Pivot Only. Now you can change the position of your pivot independent from the object. You also can use snap for more accuracy. But we have another problem. We want our snap to snap exactly to where the vertex is, but it doesn't happen. Go to snap, right click to open this window. Here you can decide the things you want your snap to react to. We choose vertices. And now when our snap gets close to a vertex, it sticks to it, like this. Fantastic! We have a transform pivot that located exactly at the middle of our shape. And now if we use lace again, we have a vase. You might say this is the ugliest vase ever existed. That's no big problem. Just delete the object and let's change the shape of our line. How are we going to do it? Line in 3ds Max works exactly like Edit Poly. Just it doesn't have surface. It's made of vertex and lines. Let's select vertex. Select one of the vertices. Has its own tools such as fillet and chamfer. Fillet does this and chamfer does this. Let's use fillet again. In my opinion, are the most useful tools for lines, for editing lines. And now we select it and we use lace again. You really don't have to search for the modifier, just enter the first two letters, lace. Needless to say, here you can change the degrees that shape your object. Let's keep it 360. And you can decide which direction you want the lace happens. X, Y, Z. Right now it's in Y direction. And if we X, actually X is good, but it's not what we need. Let's keep it in Y direction, Y axis. And you might say, wait a minute, it's a little bit better, but still it's the ugliest vase ever existed. To solve this problem, we're going to use another modifier named Turbo Smooth to make it smoother. Because everything is more beautiful when it's smoother. Now we have another issue. That box is a pain in the neck. I want to get rid of it, but I don't want to delete it. You might say, well, we can use Scene Explorer and make it invisible, but no, that's lame. Let's do something cool. Let's select our vase. Hold right click, go up and select hide unselected. Believe it or not, but when you click on it, everything that is not selected will become invisible. Now we have this object and the whole scene, and we can easily concentrate and focus on working on just this object. Now let's use edit poly again. Let's make some changes. You know what? I'm not gonna select everyone one by one. I'm gonna select the first one and double click on the second one, and the whole faces in a row will be selected like this. Now let me show you something cool. I want to make some changes on one side of our vase. I want the same thing happens on the other side. What should I do? I really hate to do. No! Sorry about that. For a moment I thought I'm not recording. But I was recording, and that's good news. Anyway, let's continue our course. We are going to use another modifier named symmetry. What does it do? It works exactly like a mirror. See that orange rectangle in the middle of our object? That works like a mirror. If we go to edit poly modifier, look, whatever we select from this side will be selected on the other side. Any change we make here on this side, the same thing happens on the other side. Exactly like a mirror. Now if we go to symmetry, we can change the direction. Reverse it and go to edit poly again, and whatever we select on this side, it will be selected on that side. But we can't select on that side. We only can select from this side. See? Like this. And now we can extrude it. The whole selected faces on both sides are extruded. And now let's select all of them and get rid of them. We are not going to select every single faces. It's going to take a lot of time, and we're not going to do that. We simply select the highest surface. And if for any reason you selected a wrong surface, hold Alt and select it to deselect it. Now come here and use grow. What happens when you select grow? Your selected area will grow like this. Like this. Like this. See, it's growing. If you select on the opposite button, which is shrink, it shrinks. Grow, shrinks. Grow, shrinks. Grow, shrinks. Grow. Now let's delete it. Nice. It's not beautiful, but it's not ugly either. Now let's use shell again. Voila. Beautiful, isn't it? If we ignore, yes, if we ignore that part, the rest is beautiful. And now we have this beautiful vase. And let's bring back all the objects we created. Hold right click and select unhide all. And everything that was hidden will be visible again. Now let's talk about materials. Before I start, I need to remind you, the subject of material is extremely immersive and complex, and it's gonna take hours, if not years, to explain every detail of it. That's why I'm not gonna explain every detail of it. I will show you and teach you only things you need to know. Let's start by creating a planet. In order to make a planet, we first create a sphere. Put it exactly in the center and make the Z to be 70. And let's change the radius. Let's decrease it so it fits inside the box. 20 is good. Now you might say it's not a planet, it's a sphere. We will turn it into a planet by using this option. And if you don't see this option, hold it so you will see these two options. Select this one, not that one, this one. It opens this window. It's not much in comparison with the other one, but for beginners, it's better. These are materials that we are going to use to create our beautiful scene. First, select this one and give it a name. This material is going to be used for our box. In basic parameters section, you have this option, which helps you to change the color. Let's change it to pink. You might say, why pink? I would say, why not? Some might say it's gay, some other might say it's girlish, it doesn't matter. We just want to use the material. To assign a material to object, select the material, hold it and drag and drop it on your favorite object. Or select material, select the object and click on this button, which is called assign material. And now our pink material is added and attached to that object. But we are not going to use color, that's the name. We are going to use photos. Search for earth texture, like this. Download it. And instead of clicking on the color, click on the button next to it. You will see these options. Go to Maps General and select Bitmap. Bitmap means photo. That's all you need to know. And select the photo you have downloaded. And now we have earth as a material. And all we need to do is put it on the sphere. But wait a minute, there is a problem. It doesn't show. Well, you need to enable the material in your viewport by clicking on this button. And now we have an earth in our scene. Now let's create another material for our walls. Select this one and repeat all the process to add a photo to your material. Bingo! If we drag and drop our material on our walls, but wait a minute, the material doesn't look right. In fact, it's just brown. That's it. We don't want a color, we want a material. Well, it happens because we have used so many modifiers, and all these modifiers unintentionally or maybe intentionally cause this issue. I recommend you, before adding material to game object, always convert it to editable poly. Go to convert and select editable poly. But wait a minute, the problem is not solved. In this case, I recommend you to use another modifier to solve this problem. That modifier you need is called UV map, I guess. Let's say UV, it had UV. Yes, UVW map. And now problem is solved. There are so many options that you can change your material based on the shape of the selected option. See which one is good for you and go with that. And here you can change the size of that shape that relatively change the material on your object. Now let's make another material for our box. You know what? Let's use brick. Why not? We create our material and put it on the box. But the problem still remains. We can't see our material while our show material in the viewport is enabled. Let's use UVW map again. A problem is solved, but it's weird because the shape we are using is not close to the shape the object has. We use box, change the size of the box, and good. Now a big question. What if after creating this object we wanted to send it to another software? What should we do? After selecting some objects, go to group, select group and then choose a name. And then you will have all the selected objects under one group. And then you need to put the pivot as close as possible to 0. Go to hierarchy, affect pivot only, and you know the drill. Believe it or not, but later it will be a huge help for you. In order to export, go to File, Export, and you have two options, Export and Export Selected. Well, obviously, if you choose Export, you export the entire scene with all the objects in it. And Export Selected, you only export selected objects. Give it an address and give it a name, and between all the types you have here, I recommend you to choose FBX. because this is the best option, and by using this option you can export animation, material and everything with it. After choosing a type for your file, click on save. But when you click on save, you will say, oh my gosh, what are these? The most important part is in advanced option, axis conversion. There are some softwares out there such as Unity that take Z axis as up axis. You need to change it based on the software you're gonna export your project. In this case, we are exporting from 3ds Max to Maya. So we keep it Y. And in include panel, you can decide the things you want to include with your exported project. For example, if your project has animation but you don't want to export the animation with it, disable the animation option. And now here we are in Maya and we want to import our project. So we do it. File, import, and voila. Our 3ds Max project is here with material and the hierarchy and everything. Now what if we want to import up another project to 3ds Max? Well, in this case you need to go to import. Here you have two options, import and merge. We use merge when we want to import a 3ds Max file, and we use import when we are going to use other types of files. If we click on merge and choose a 3ds Max file, we see this window. Here we have a list of all available objects in that project, which is full of nonsense names because I didn't choose good names for objects. So please take the naming process very seriously. In this case, we click on all and OK to import all the objects. And the other option is import. If you want to import FBX, OBJ, or any other type, you need to use import. And that's it. How long did it take? 57 minutes. 57 minutes to learn the most important and useful things about 3ds Max without spending any money and spending any time. You're welcome.